No. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call the Tuesday, November 10th, 2015 committee whole meeting to order. It's approximately 6:01 p.m. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Burgess?
Here.
Councilman Raw?
Here.
Vice Mayor Fairclough?
Here.
Mayor Porter?
Here. Any additions, deletions, deferrals, Mr. Attorney?
Yes, we're going to remove items tab 12, 13, 14, and 15 from the agenda. We could have a motion.
Second? All in favor? There's no one opposed to moving up tab 9 to the beginning of the agenda.
You mean 11? 11.
Sorry, tab 11, sorry. Anybody opposed to tab 11? Okay, well, let's do an approval of the 13 October 13 approval of the minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Tab 11, Mr. Attorney. Mr. Manager.
Mayor, I'm just trying to find out, is Mr. Rosen here? Or would you mind asking him when his item is on, please? Mayor, we thought we'd start with them making a presentation.
Okay. I thought they were here. Sorry. We can go back to the agenda if they're not ready.
You want to start with a couple of others?
Yeah. All right. So,
Want to do two?
go to tab 2.
Motion to place car 1639.
Your microphone is not on, Richard. I can't hear you.
PVA Correction Officers Memorandum of Understanding.
We've done all our time tonight.
Questions from council? Tab 2. Mr. Attorney? Mr. Manager?
Mayor, staff recommends the mayor and council approve the attached resolution ratifying the memorandum of understanding between the City of Homestead and the Police Benevolent Association, authorizing the city manager to execute said MOU.
This is negotiated through both IBEW, PBA,
Yes, and no cost impacts, just
moving some employees out of IBEW into PBA.
yes.
Any other questions from council? Is there a motion on tab 2? Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Tab 3.
Waiver of usage fees for the use of Losner Park.
Mr. Manager?
Mayor, the Chabad of Homestead Cutler Bay is hosting their annual menorah lighting in honor of the Jewish festival of Hanukkah. The amount of the waiver is $200 for the use of Losner Park, and according to City Code Chapter 2020-11, fees and charges, the City Council sets fees and has the right to waive park and recreation fees by majority vote.
We've been doing this consistently for the last few years,
Yes.
correct? Mr. Burgess?
Well, Mayor, keeping with our tradition of taking care of these requests out of ourselves, I'm willing to put up half of it if anybody else wants to help me with it.
That's fine. Vice Mayor?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll sponsor the other half.
So that can be taken off?
For the record, then, we'll take that item off the agenda.
Tab 4 is purchase of workstation CIP 662.
Mr. Manager?
Mayor, the Homestead Police Department routinely replaces computer systems on a staggered basis as systems become obsolete or losing warranty status. At this time, the police department is due to replace 31 client computer systems currently being utilized by police department staff that have become obsolete and are out of warranty. If these systems should fail, there will be no manufacturer warranty to address a hardware failure. Products run by these systems include Office, Visio, Outlook, and other police-related software products used in the normal course of business. Staff recommends Mayor and Council approve the attached resolution to authorize the City Manager to purchase 31 computer work systems from CDWG. This purchase is made in accordance with the National Joint Powers Alliance number 100614 CDW. The purchase is budgeted under CIP 662 for a total cost of $40,499.50.
Questions from council? Is there a motion?
Move it.
Is there a second? Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Tab 5,
Fourth Amendment to American Traffic Solutions contract.
Mr. Manager.
This motion will serve to enable the city manager to renew the city ATS traffic safety camera program contract for an additional term that will expire August 24, 2017, subject to future renewals and extensions by the parties. The structure of fees charged by ATS to the city has been revised to be more favorable to the city. Traffic safety camera program of the city has reduced red light violations. Staff recommends the mayor and council authorize city manager to approve the attached contract amendment between City of Homestead and ATS.
Questions from council? Is there a motion?
Move it.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Tab 6,
Radiator metal rehabilitation.
Mr. Manager.
This service requests bidders to repair or replace deteriorated sheet metal and support structure for 4 radiators used for cooling of 2 cold peel stick dual fuel engines. These engines are 2 of the 3 largest engines used to produce electricity for the city. Staff recommends mayor and council authorize city manager to approve the award bid for the rehab of 4 radiators located at the electric power plant to the lowest, most responsible bidder, Condo Electric Motor Repairs. The total rehab cost not to exceed $68,900.
Questions from council? Is there a motion?
Move it.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Tab 7,
Quote from Fairbanks Morse.
Mr. Manager.
Open Systems International assisted on-site with the implementation of upgrade and as a result incurred travel expenses and shipping charges for servers shipped to the site. These charges were not included in the original quote and been billed as incurred. Staff recommends mayor and council approve an amendment in the amount of $4,420.87 to the existing purchase order issued to Open Systems International for the project entailing integration and implementation of upgraded supervisory control and data acquisition software for the electric utility. The original purchase order issued in the amount of $64,850, and this amendment will bring the total to $69,270.87.
Questions from council? Is there a motion?
Move it.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Tab 8,
Transmission Consulting Services Agreement.
Rich, you're off by 1. Tab 8.
Tab 8.
That's Morse.
I
got it.
just did Morse.
Oh, you skipped 7.
Fuel nozzle.
Oh, I'm sorry. OSI software upgrade, RTU's control points.
Yes. Staff recommends mayor and council approve the award of 4 quotes for power plant engine repairs for Fairbanks Morse, the total award amount being $170,201.22. Fairbanks Morse is a sole source vendor for these parts per city resolution R 2015-0559.
Questions from council? Mr. Burgess?
Thank you. Anybody from the utility here that can answer?
Barbara's not here? Okay, if you don't mind, Mayor, if we could put this one aside until Barbara, I know I saw her.
Just move it onto the agenda. Because
Yeah, we could hold this one off.
Okay.
But maybe you can answer, Mr. Manager. My question is, we've been given a price by these people, and I know that they're a sole source provider. How do we know that that price is an accurate price for this job that we're getting? What do we do to verify the cost that or the price that they're sending us for the workload?
Well, I can tell you, I know what they've told me in the past, which is that they have a general sense of what the market conditions are, and they have the discussions, but I
Do
think
we
you
get
should hear
anything in
that.
writing from anybody else? Do we reach out to any other firm just to do a verification? That's my question.
I think you
Because
should.
I understand if somebody's telling us they want to give us whatever the price is for tonight's projects, adds up, but do we have somebody that we can call to rely on in the city, or does the utilities, or does general procurement reach out to anybody to get a verification, not just word of mouth from the utilities department that this is a good deal?
I'd prefer for Barbara to be back so she can answer what kind of research she's done on
All
this.
right, can we move this one then?
You want to hold this, and we'll keep
We could.
moving forward. Tab 9,
Transmission Consulting Services Agreement.
Mr. Manager.
City of Homestead Electric Utility, well, Barbara's not on for this one either, so if you don't mind, let's hold off on that one too.
Okay.
Professional real estate auctioning services for the sale of city-owned properties.
On tab 10, Mr. Manager.
Fisher Auction Company, a full-service real estate auction marketing firm located in Pompano Beach, Florida, is the top-ranked proposer for the real estate auction RFP. Awarding the contract to Fisher Auction will ensure the city has access to their services in the event the city wishes to auction any city-owned properties. The auction of any city-owned properties would have to appear before council for approval. Staff recommends Mayor and Council approve motion to award RFP number 201539, professional real estate auctioning services for the sale of city-owned properties, to the top-ranked proposer, Fisher Auction Company.
Questions from council? Mr. Maldonado?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a question. I know that we went out and this is coming before us in regards to all the properties that we own. Have we made a definitive answer as a council that this is the best route that we're going to go in auctioning, or are there other options that we're going to have or discuss? Or there's going to be an auction, this is the company, here's our properties, and we're going to sell them?
A couple of things. This one here is sort of like our engineering and architectural firms that are on approved lists. So what we'll do is have this company on a list, but no process will move forward until the council makes the decision on A, whether they want to sell any properties, and B, what methodology they want to use in order to do that.
Thank you.
Councilman Shelley?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I think you answered my question, but I was just wanting to confirm that this is essentially choosing the company that could list these properties, but we're not making any decisions on the actual properties themselves tonight, correct?
Right, and the reason to have it on the list is similar to architects and engineer.
Correct.
When you're ready to use somebody, you don't want to have to go through a 3-4 months process. That process is already complete, but you don't necessarily have to use their services.
Okay, perfect.
And you don't pay anything unless you use their services, and you wouldn't even utilize that until you fully understand what the service agreement would be with them.
Correct. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Burgess?
Thank you, Mayor. To the manager. Will they come, could we ask them to come to us with a plan of selling things off, like give them our properties and say, what do they think?
Yes.
We bundle these together to help them to move the product or things like that. Is these things that we can reach out to them for as we
Yes,
try to formulate a plan?
We assume before we would do that, we'd have a general understanding from you at some point as to whether you even, we don't want to, we're assuming one thing, that on the City Hall site, the line of credit that was issued to us for the $10 million for the application towards the new City Hall project, it was an understanding, quote, when we sell the property, that money will be used to pay off that loan. That was a previous decision. You all may all decide at some point to change direction on that. But so the only assumption we have is at some point we're coming to you with, at the very least, that property, and we can talk methodology about not only that one, but some of the others. Also, as we talk about funding some of the new downtown projects, there are some properties that we've looked at in terms of maybe solving some of our funding issues for those projects as well. And so we'll come back to you at some point.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
Yes, quick question. Is this the same real estate auctioning firm that attempted a presentation before us?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, when we were engaged in discussion about the bowling
Yes.
alley property. This is that company?
Yes.
And this is just another option, another tool in the bag as we process through deciding what we may or may not want to do with a surplus property, assuming that we make it surplus.
Yes.
So, is there any final comments or questions? Is there a motion?
Move it.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Tab 11.
Okay, at this point, Mr. Rosen, are you, there he is. Come on out, come out, you're ready, you're on.
Okay. We good to go? Okay. Good evening, Mayor, Council, City Manager, General Public, Homestead citizens. My name is Taylor Smith, and I'm not on your list, but we just registered, so we are a registered lobbyist now, representing the land-bearing entities who are the applicants under this item and the community stakeholders. We're here tonight. My my address is 1819 Goodwin Street, Jacksonville, Florida, 32204. I'm a long-standing stakeholder in your community by being affiliated with Mr. Rosen and his efforts to revitalize the Homestead community through the Keys Gate area. Very exciting to be here. We have our entire team. We're not all speaking tonight. I've been nominated with the short straw to summarize the item that's before you and ask for your kind consideration to move it forward. As you all know, Mr. Rosen has been, and his team have been a long-standing investor in the community, but one of the areas of greatest needs that have come before us over the last couple of years has been the Keys Gate Golf Course and its demise as a operating entity and as an operating golf course, but not as a community asset. So what we've done is we've put together an investment plan spearheaded by Wayne and a team of investors, and it's over $10 million of investment, of which we're asking for $3 million through the form of a CDBG through the city investment. $3.5 million is our request. The item before you says $3 million, but we really are in need of $3.5 million, which we can go into details later. But we're investing the balance in private capital. And to put it very simply and succinctly, this is an asset that we are committed to making a permanent community asset for the citizens of Homestead in the form of a reopened, renovated clubhouse, recreational facility, and golf course that we will also, at the instruction of the city manager, create a permanent easement over the golf course. So it will be forever preserved as open space for the Homestead community. Through this current revitalization project, it's going to create over 80 jobs, jobs that don't exist today. And these will be jobs for Homestead residents.
I hate to interrupt you, though. I just want to make it clear for the record. Your letter that you submitted says $3 million, and that was my understanding. This was $3 million. So
right.
You just said your request is $3.5 million. So I just want to understand. Are you changing your request, or is there a misunderstanding? Because it says right here $3 million.
You're allowed to speak.
Wayne Rosen, 277 Galleon Court, Coral Gables, Florida 33143. I received an email from some staff of yours that said that the grant was capped at $3 million. Our original application and original discussion was for $3.5 million. If that money is available through the grant, we would like to apply for it.
Okay, so
we understand the cap is $3.9 million and not $3 million. So I don't know if that was a decision made by...
Yeah, I just wanted to be clear because your letter says $3 million, so I just wanted to make sure we understood what the request was, and you're saying it's 3.5.
$3.5 million. We heard today that the cap for this grant is 3.9, so the original request of $3.5 million would be what we're going forward to tonight with.
The project consists of a complete renovation of the clubhouse, a complete redevelopment of the golf course, and Mr. Jim Fazio is here tonight as well and is going to speak to their expertise as a firm. They've designed courses all over the world. We all know the Fazio name, those of us that play golf. And beyond being incredible golfers themselves, the family is also a great design company and has done phenomenal work. So we'd like to say we're bringing Palm Beach South to Homestead to make this an internationally recognized course again, to bring it back into its heyday and beyond. It's very important to note that the course as designed is a championship course, but it has not been maintained at the level to which it was originally intended. So it's very expensive, but once we renovate it and bring it back up to that standard, you'll be proud to play it once again. And it's going to attract golfers on their way to the Keys, golfers from north of here, golfers from south of here, and it'll be a very active course once again, as it was back in 2002, when I believe it achieved over 40,000 rounds a year, which is a big statement. I formerly owned a golf course in Broward County. We never achieved 40,000 rounds a year, and that's a historical fact here at Keys Gate. That's something to be proud of as a community, and it speaks to the nature of the course and its essence. The event and clubhouse is going to be an important reopening for the community, for wedding events, for community gatherings, for NASCAR-related events during those high sporting events. It's going to be great revenue for the community. And again, Mr. Rick Beasley and David Gilbert are here from Career Source South Florida to testify to their investment in making these jobs not only come to fruition with us, but also create lifelong learning opportunities for those that are in need of employment. We're going to train them. We're going to give them new expertise as individuals, and they're going to get us a new lease on life as cooks, as landscape experts, as event planners, as managers, as golf course administrators. And it's a fantastic thing for the Homestead community. It doesn't just benefit Keysgate, it'll benefit the entire city. Once we open the golf course, we will actually be operating at a deficit. So the Rosen team is not just investing their part of this public-private partnership, but they actually anticipate that the course will operate as most companies do in their startup. This is going to be a second startup, Keysgate 2.0 golf course. And so most likely it'll cost about $400,000 a year. It's hard to predict, but we anticipate and we're ready to invest an operating capital fund as well to allow the golf course to be sustainable as it reintegrates and recruits and attracts players from the South Florida area and also builds its event business. We predict after about 3 or 4 years it'll begin to break even and then have its own trajectory and be self-sustaining. There are a lot of stakeholders involved in this project. It is not a huge money-making event for us. In fact, not at all. This is an investment into the epicenter of Keysgate, but one that springboards into the entire community. We're very committed and we guard this asset closely because of the importance to Keysgate, but also what happens if we don't do this. With our course in Broward County, we didn't have a partnership with the city. We were unable to secure an economic development investment such as you have as an opportunity tonight with CDBG Section 108. So we were forced to close the golf course, and now if you look on Google Earth and you look at the corner of Hiatus and Pembroke Road and Pembroke Pines, you'll see Standard Pacific is building a lovely community on what was once a golf course, the Raintree Golf Course. And that was because we just couldn't sustain it. It was an economic impossibility, because you have to invest and maintain golf courses at a competitive state. They have to be run by, designed and renovated by people like Jim Fazio. They have to be managed by professionals such as Patrick and his team, who's here tonight, that have run Tobacco Road, the Oyster River Club, the Oyster River Bar, and the Oak Tavern, and other restaurants around Dade County. They know what it takes to run an event center, a wedding operation that attracts the level of events. We just didn't have that in Broward. So it's kind of a one-time opportunity for us as stakeholders to commit and secure this. This is important at the request of the city manager. Again, something we didn't do at Raintree. Had we done it, it would still be there as a community asset. But he's willing to put a covenant, an easement across the golf course, which would forever in perpetuity preserve it as open space. That, again, is no small statement. And it's very rare to find a community stakeholder such as Wayne who would do that. But he believes that it will ultimately benefit Keysgate and the community, the greater Homestead community. I think that we have, those of us that have signed up, we're happily constrained by the lobbying regulations and rules that we've all adopted as the city of Homestead. And so I'm allowed to speak, Wayne is allowed to speak and answer questions. Mr. Fazio is going to talk a little bit about the design of the course, the renovation approach. And then Rick Beasley's here from Career Source South Florida, because Rick has a very strategic plan on what this 85 opportunity looks like for the new jobs. And so Rick's also allowed to speak. If you have other questions, you could direct them through us, and we can ask other members of our team, such as Patrick or John England, perhaps for answers. So with that, I'd like to introduce Jim Fazio to talk just for a minute about the approach to the golf course design because we're very proud to have one of the best golf course designers in the world with us tonight.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen and audience. My name is Jim Fazio, and I have a very short resume. I've had one job my whole life, designing golf courses. Our family has probably built 400 golf courses throughout the United States and other countries. And I've been in the business since 1961. When my two sons got old enough, they came to work for me because they couldn't get a job with any other architect, and they wanted to be in this business. Nobody would hire them because their name was Fazio. It was a competition thing. So I designed golf courses. I've also designed and owned golf courses. I've designed and built golf courses under contract to hire my two sons to work for me. So I know every aspect of the golf course industry. Any question, any part of it, I've been asked, answered, and everything else. So with this project here, I have a partner in the back there that I've done other golf courses with. We were contacted, and we're going to do a design build for Mr. Rosen at Keysgate. We looked at the plan. We've driven the golf course several times. The layout is an excellent layout as far as golf design is. We don't have to change anything. The biggest problem I see out there is it's dead flat. And the two most important things on a golf course is irrigation and drainage. You can play without irrigation, but you cannot play with bad drainage. So we did a plan to regrade the golf course, shape it into a first-class golf course. And then we are going to cap it with sand so that when it does rain, you can play golf. The biggest problem that people have is when it rains and you tell them they can't play and the sun's out. They don't understand that. I lived at a golf course community, a very expensive one, and my wife would get up in the morning at 6:30. They got a call from the pro shop. It's cart pass only today. Nobody would play. So now I got to find something for my wife to do because they can't play. She can't play golf. So I understand these problems, and we're going to solve the problem out here because of the way we're going to build it. We're going to buy the sand to bring in to haul on the golf course after we do the shaping of it. We'll drain it into catch basins, and after we plant it, the problem with the soil that's out there, it doesn't percolate. Everybody knows this soil, when it's flat, it just lays on the ground and has to drain somewhere. So when we shape it, we'll direct it to catch basins, into pipes, into lakes. Then we'll cap it with sand so when it rains, the soil can absorb moisture. It doesn't have to just surface drain. It'll percolate through that layer of sand that we put in. And that's the key element to making this golf course successful, that you can play every day in the wintertime even though it rains. I've seen the weather patterns change since 1973 when we didn't have a day of rain from November to June. Now you get as much rain in the wintertime as you do the summer. It's just a fact of life. And we want to be able to play golf when it's done raining or even while it's raining if it's not raining hard. So we're going to take on this project and build it for Mr. Rosen on a design-build basis, and we're going to give you the best possible golf course that we can out here on this property. Thank you.
I want to introduce, thank you, Mr. Fazio. Mr. Rick Beasley and David Gilbert are here from Career Source, South Florida. Career Source, South Florida. I have to articulate more carefully. Now, I've learned a lot about their investment of our stewardship dollars as Florida residents. So what they do, and I don't want to steal your thunder, but other than to brag, when they come with us, they bring an investment of training, and I call it lifelong learning, but they're bringing an investment of cash and resources from outside of Homestead. So this is in addition to everything else in our proposal. It's in addition to our budget. They're offering an investment in the community by partnering with us on how these jobs become a reality. So, Rick?
Good evening. No, let's try. Good evening. Good evening, council. I'm sorry, I'm one of those that I always like for folks to talk back because I'm blessed to be here today. So we're very excited about this project. Being from Missouri, you get a chance to visit various parts of the country, and Homestead is one of these cities that has a beautiful ambiance about it. But the one thing about living in Dade County for the last 10 years, we oftentimes don't find an opportunity to visit the southern part of the county. And this is a very wonderful side of the county that a lot of folks don't see. re-engaging, and I've actually had an opportunity to play this course twice. And actually it's a wonderful course, but an opportunity for us to re-engage and rebuild it. And so when Wayne called us up and asked us about how can we help assist in building a workforce here and ensuring that the citizens of Homestead have an opportunity for employment, we jumped at that chance. We had an opportunity to meet with his team and to discuss ways for us to utilize our resources, our training dollars, to be able to enhance, rebuild, and reskill citizens in this community so they can work. It is not just about training for the jobs for today, but ensuring that the residents have an opportunity for tomorrow. As you all know, hospitality is a thriving component of Dade County, and also is going to be a thriving component here of Homestead. Several days ago, I had an opportunity to see a video of the racetrack and the wonderful opportunities. I know we just had the NASCAR here. So think about that. Is it coming up this week or next week? Next coming. Then I ran into all that traffic this weekend thinking it was this weekend. Oh my God. So I will not be visiting this weekend. Sorry, Mayor, but I felt this past weekend. But think about the opportunity about having a world-class golf course tied in where folks can come and spend some days before and days after visiting or experiencing NASCAR. And so when Wayne asked us and talked to us, we looked at and calculated. So here are the numbers for us. 85 jobs for us allows us to generate almost $2.7 million of salaries back into this community. $2.7 million of salaries with an average wage of about $19.08. Our investment would be up to almost $234,000 of either classroom training or on-the-job training to be able to assist them to get the certifications for long term. So for us, it is about generating the dollars. So for every dollar we spend, we get a $6.72 return on our investment. That's important. That's how we evaluate our projects. So let me put it this way. Last year, as a region, we placed 77,000 individuals in jobs, generated $1.7 billion of salaries back into Dade County. So for every dollar we spent, we got a $34 return on our investment. That's how we gauge projects and how we want to invest. But it's about that lifelong learning. So the individuals that come onto the jobs, whether they're into the golf course management or whether they're a line cook, it is about getting that certification so that if there's an opportunity for other jobs, working with us, we're able to place them. We did make a commitment to Wayne. As you all know, we have an agreement with you all to ensure that any project resources coming from the city, that they must be citizens of the city. And that's the one commitment that we made to Wayne, that if we put our resources on the table, the citizens that we train must be from Homestead. As I shared with him, I don't want his politics mixed up with mine because I have to still do business with you regardless if we do business here. We want you to approve this project. We think it's a fantastic project. The main reason, it draws more economic development to Homestead and more folks coming down here spending money. And that's what it's about. But for me, it's about getting people jobs and lifelong jobs. But I'm willing to answer any questions that you have for me.
And I just want to wrap.
Hold on one second.
Yes, sir.
Vice Mayor?
Yes, I just have a quick question for Mr. Beasley. Taylor, earlier you mentioned that with the partnership with Career Source South Florida, they had a specific plan and approach to be able to recruit and train our locals to be able to obtain these jobs. Rick, can you speak with a bit more specificity about your approach to recruitment and retraining? As you
know, Vice Mayor, we have an opportunity through us, so the citizens know we have well over 394,000 individuals in our database. Not only are we somewhat of the city, but we're also the county as well as the state. And so folks register us through Employed Florida or through another website that we call Employed Miami-Dade. It's an initiative that we have, but I can actually do job search either by zip code, by city. There's a way that we've designed it. And so in this case, when the project's approved and we're ready to start to recruit, we'll specifically look at those zip codes in Homestead, bring folks into our career centers, work with them, assess them. For those individuals that may not be hired on the project, the beauty of it is I still work with them regardless. So we're still continuing to provide services to those residents. My career center is located right here in Homestead, right on US 1. Last year, folks, we placed 4,176 people in the jobs. That is a return on our investment of $28, just this career center. I'm speaking of here in Homestead. My return on investment for every dollar I spent, I got a $28 return on my investment. We generated over $2.9 million of salaries back into the community off that one career center here in Homestead. But our goal is to recruit specifically off the zip codes that we have through our database. And for projects like this, and any employer in the room, I can search by an occupational skill set for those jobs here. Again, not only do we offer services here, we offer to any employer who's willing to hire here in Homestead. The dollars that we have are on-the-job training or work-based learning or classroom training. We have 45 different training vendors in our system that we work with. But Miami-Dade College is our primary one, and Miami-Dade Public Schools is the primary one that we use as well.
So, Vice Mayor, if I may ask a question, it's somewhat of a rhetorical leading question, but if I wanted to be a line cook at this new event center, how would I, and I don't know how to do it, well, how would that work?
Well, one way for us is one, recruit, but the other piece is that we do the assessment. But we'll bring in our partner with Miami-Dade College to do the training for us. We actually have an initiative through the Hospitality Institute currently right now dealing with culinary, and specifically we'll have them come in. So not just those individuals that are hired on the job, but allows us to be able to retrain other folks in this community that didn't have that opportunity. We're actually looking for a major training site here. That's in addition to this project, but with Miami-Dade College. But we do have our good friends over here in Homestead through Dr. Jeannie Jacobs, her center, the Homestead campus that we can work with as well.
So I might actually get a real job. Or both of us, if I can have my residency here.
Let me ask the manager a question. You know, this is a discussion item, and we all came to the table looking at a $3 million number. So out of this discussion, I mean, there's another process. So walk us through this, because
Sure.
These numbers are changing.
We have Calvin here. He's our HUD expert, and he's going to go through the process with you now. Calvin?
Good evening. My name's Calvin Knowles.
Can barely hear you. You might get right up on that.
That better?
Better.
So I'm Calvin Knowles with Government Services Group, and I'm your grants consultant. And so I was asked to look into the Section 108 process for this project. And just to give you, if I may, just a brief outline of what Section 108 is and what it does, that might help guide the discussion. And then we can get into next steps. So the block grant program, you get about $770,000 a year. And what Section 108 is that actually refers to a part of the block grant statute in the federal law, and it's a loan. And what HUD has said is that with Section 108, you can get up to 5 times your annual allocation at one time for any eligible block grant purpose. So you get up to 5 times your allocation, which is about $3.9 million, and you have up to 20 years to repay it. And the incentive for it is the very, very low interest rate that HUD charges, which is basically the rate of a U.S. Treasury, which is about 3%, actually a little less than 3%. So when I say any eligible CDBG purpose, what I mean is that when you look at the CDBG regs and you see eligible activities, eligible national objectives, you can use your 108 for any of those things. And the reason people use it is if you have a project that comes along, it's a rare tool, but it is used. If you have a project that comes along every now and again and you say, wow, I really want to do that, this is a tool that allows you to do it. But again, it's got to fit within the CDBG, it's got to fit within that CDBG mold. So a natural question is, well, this is a golf course, it's privately owned, what does that have to do with CDBG? Well, it's the job creation, because the way you'd be qualifying it is not as a public facility, which is what most block grant money is used for. You'd be qualifying it as a special economic development activity. So in this case, it's job creation. Now, HUD has ratios of funding when they review these deals, and the most common ratio HUD uses is about $35,000 of public money spent per job. So to HUD, that's one of the first things they look at is how much public money are you spending per job that you're creating. So that's the first step. And these ratios change depending on the type of project it is. The next thing HUD does is they say, okay, so let's say you're going to create 85 jobs and you're going to get about $3 million. Of those 85 jobs, how many are available to low-income people? And how are those jobs available? And the answer is always at least 51% of the jobs created have to be low income, and they have to be made available to low income residents. And furthermore, when I say they have to be made available, I mean that they have to be jobs that are either low skilled or jobs that require basic skills, which will be taught by a potential employer. So the whole objective is economic development and job creation with a process like this. Now, as far as the steps, these are complicated deals. So it's a very deliberate process. The first step is what we're doing here tonight, which is listening to a proposal to see what the proposal is about. And then the second step, if we move forward from tonight, would be to do an initial discussion with HUD and to say to HUD, this is what's being proposed, what do you think, and what would your terms be? So, and to step back a little bit, the question is, how do you repay the loan? Well, HUD is going to come up with a repayment schedule up to 20 years to repay it. And at the beginning of every year, depending on what term you choose, HUD is going to repay itself from your allocation. So when the new fiscal year starts, which is October 1, you're not going to get the full amount of money. You're going to get your allocation minus your payment plus interest. So you're reducing the money that's available for you to do other things. HUD always brags the 108 has never defaulted. Well, that's because it's their money. So they're going to repay themselves first. And then the question is going to be, does the city in turn get repaid from a participating party? Does the city not get repaid? Is it an outright grant? What is the final interest rate? What is the cost of underwriting? All of these things need to be discussed with HUD. So once we have that discussion with HUD, then, if we get a good feeling from HUD, if we get a bad feeling from HUD, then we start the process of amending your consolidated plan and your action plan. Because right now your consolidated plan says nothing about economic development or Section 108. So HUD is going to insist that you talk about Section 108, economic development, and they're going to insist you mention the project by name in your action plan, in your consolidated plan. That process is going to require, that's at least 45 to 60 days to quickly amend that. Then there's and some of these things work at the same time. There's also a pre-application process. If HUD says, I like this project, these are good terms, we need to start the process, they'll do a pre-application first, send that to headquarters in Washington, and Washington will do a preliminary review and say, yes, we would accept this, proceed, or no, we don't like this, change this, or whatever. Then you would actually proceed with the actual 108 application, and then presumably, if it's successful, then you would get your funding, your proceeds from the 108. So that's it in summary. And if you need clarification, obviously, please ask me, because I realize it's kind of technical.
Okay, the Vice Mayor has a question.
Yes, thank you. As the liaison from Council for CDBG, I have a very good understanding of the Community Development Block Grant process. But for some of our residents who didn't even know what that acronym stood for, let me just back you up a little bit to help provide a frame of reference for them. Can you talk a little bit about the previous projects that the city has used CDBG funds for so that they have an understanding of what we have done historically?
Certainly. The City of Homestead has a long history of very successful block grant projects going back a long time. And since you became an entitlement community in 2010, the last 5 years you've been you became an entitlement community in the late 2000s. So in the last 5 years you've done things, for example, like assisting with En Familia's public facility, the Homestead Soup Kitchen, a lot of work with the YMCA at Harris Field. You've done a number of city projects, Blakey Park, Dickinson Community Center, a lot of infrastructure work like sewer work, Pump Station Number 1 and Force Main received block grant money, Michael Williams, and a lot of public services as well, so funding things like the summer camps for Youth for Christ, Start Off Smart, Miami Bridge, housing rehabilitation, a lot of projects like that. And also, if I could go back even farther than that, you have used, before you were in entitlement community, you had to compete for money through the state of Florida. And you actually did a number of economic development projects through that competitive program, including traffic signalization for Portofino and traffic signalization for the Marriott Courtyard and the Hampton Inn intersection. And also going back in time, you've done economic development for Richard's Tractor on Campbell Drive, but that's going back to Hurricane Andrew. And also in Hurricane Andrew, you received many millions of dollars in disaster funding through CDBG, which was used for projects all over the city.
Yeah. Just to follow up, so the city has been very successful as it relates to utilizing the CDBG funds for very worthwhile projects in the city. However, those projects have not elevated to the magnitude as a potential partnership as such with the Section 108 plan. So if approved, this could potentially be a game changer and something very substantive for the city of Homestead, and that hasn't been done before. So I'm interested in hearing a little bit more about what this potential partnership can offer for the city of Homestead.
Is that all, Ms. Cross? Mr. Burgess?
You mentioned that 51% of the workforce must be from low income and have the jobs available to them. Does that have to remain throughout the entire term of the loan, or how does that work? 1, 2, who enforces that? And 3, what happens if that doesn't become a reality at some point?
Well, those are all excellent questions, and the way it's done is the best expression is a snapshot in time. When the development is completed and it is geared up, your participating party, which in this case would be Mr. Rosen, would basically say to the city, okay, you know, I'm ready, I've got the jobs. You would go out, you would document those jobs, and then you would essentially proceed to close the project out. So when you report the project in your consolidated annual performance and evaluation report for that fiscal year, that's when you're closing it out. That's the snapshot in time. So let's say the project was completed in let's say the project was completed in a year, but the jobs weren't created in 2 years. So that means in 2 years, in that consolidated annual performance report, that's when you would close it out. So that's the snapshot in time. After that, you're done.
So it's one time we have to prove that we had the 51%
Yes,
was
sir.
available.
However, it must be done in good faith, and HUD, I had a meeting with HUD about a similar project in Fort Lauderdale, and they explained to me their displeasure with the project on the West Coast where a supermarket hired several hundred people and then laid them off in 30 days. And they were not pleased with that at all.
So if the snapshot comes in and we're at 51%, then there's no penalty or anything or what could happen to the city down the road? Is there any kind of penalty down the road if HUD is to come back and investigate and find out something? So I'm just trying to figure out how we keep control of that to make sure that there's there, because as we see, and this is nothing against Mr. Rosen and his project, but we see a lot of different things where things turn over and that doesn't become a reality, and then the city's the one left holding the bag.
Well, your participating party has to agree to maintain records, and they would be, HUD has the right through these program documents to come down and examine the records of the participating party. HUD relies on the city as an entitlement
So
community.
we would be an overseer.
Yes, sir. The city is the first line of defense. The city is the entity HUD's looking to keep the participating party according to the terms of the contract. If HUD does not feel that we are doing that, that would be an undesirable outcome, and HUD would come down and start looking at the participating parties' records. The worst case scenario would be that the jobs are not created, the project could not close, and the city would probably be subject to some punitive measures of which I can't speak to because I'm not sure what they would do, to be honest. Since they're loaning their own money, it would be difficult to say, but needless to say, HUD has many tools to punish you, so I'm sure they'd find a way.
Can you explain, you talked about a ratio of jobs and 35%, and I kind of got lost there a little bit.
I apologize. It's not 35%. It's actually an actual number, $35,000.
Okay. So that's their goal of what we're trying to pay them?
Well, the one thing I wanted to add, though, is, and where I'm a little thrown off by the request for an additional $500,000, is that when you multiply the $35,000 with the 85, it's just under $3 million. So when the staff capped it at $3 million, that was part of the rationale for it. So I would just caution this additional request. I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, if you were to request additional money based on this ratio, you would need to supply more jobs. And again, it isn't that you're going to supply 85 low-income jobs. You're going to do 85 jobs, and of those jobs, at least 51% are low income.
Understood. Do you think, does it hinder us to take almost the 100% that we're allowed to take if to do this? Does HUD frown upon that? Do they like to see you only not use all your money for that, or does that hinder the process any with them as we move forward?
Well, HUD's opinion, I think, is going to be is the project a good project or not. I don't think they'd be so concerned with the allocation as much as the structure of the project. You know, obviously, if you take all of your capacity in one fell swoop, you're not going to have any capacity for something else that could come down the road later. And some communities do have multiple 108 projects going at the same time. So if you were to take most of it for one project, then obviously you're only going to have one project.
Thank you. I'll hold the other questions for now. Thank you.
One question. We're going to lose opportunities with other projects, and the $3 million was a number. It seemed like. Well, what does the city get for the $3 million or the 3 point whatever million? All the city gets is a green space in perpetuity. Is that correct? Is that there's no ownership in anything?
We asked for several things, not knowing, of course, what the amount. First of all, whether you wanted to even do this, and then also what the amount you might agree to was. But we wanted to at least start with a framework of there needs to be some substantial benefit to the city beyond they build the golf course. Because if it's private property and there's no strings attached to this money, then they can close it at any time and they may be able to do other things. So what we asked for was we wanted some sort of entitlement or some sort of a property right or some sort of a legal structure wherein it has to remain in perpetuity a golf course and or open space, meaning they can never build on it. The second thing is that we wanted to ensure that it remain a public, if it's going to be a golf course, that somebody can drive by, pull in, and pay whatever the money is, but pay and not be a private membership-only club, which they've agreed to as well. And then also there's some question about how many years you might want to actually specify that it's got to at least operate as a golf course. So those were the big issues as far as we were concerned, and it would, the closer we get to have some sort of right to the property, enhances our chances of HUD approving this loan, and without having any issues downstream. One of the things about Calvin, and one of the reasons we keep him around is because we've never had to pay HUD back for any mistakes. And many cities don't follow the rules and make mistakes, and then you end up having to pay things back. So if we're going to go down this route, we're going to follow the procedures to the letter of the law. And if we can't get it to the point where we don't think we're going to have problems, then we'll come back to you and tell you that. But we're fairly certain that if we're going to do this, we're going to make sure that we have the blessing of HUD before we sign anything.
So this portion of that negotiation, as far as give and take, or what, because you're asking for things that aren't obviously in this letter, that gets done at a later stage.
But what we are hoping from you is to at least get a sense from you of, do you want us to take the next step and start exploring the process? Also, are you comfortable with some of the business terms? I don't know if you're comfortable with 3, if you're comfortable with less than 3. Do you want us to negotiate that? And then also beyond, are you comfortable with the topics that I just mentioned in terms of restrictions to the property? And then also, is there anything else that you want us to discuss with them before we put a final package to meet with HUD?
One question with regards to HUD's involvement. If you went to HUD and said, this is the project and these are, this is how we're going to do it, would they be able to say, well, you're not going to be able to get the full access to the 3.9? Would they come back and say, maybe it's 2, maybe it's 2.1, maybe it's 2.5? I mean, obviously you're negotiating with them as well, correct?
You are absolutely correct. HUD is a very active partner in these projects, and they will make their opinion known loudly and quickly. So yes, very much an active partner. If I could just add a few things very quickly, because this is a private property, HUD is, I would anticipate HUD would insist on some kind of an ownership interest, at least for the term of this project. So I would imagine there would be a mortgage and a note to the benefit of the city on this property, at least until the project is closed. I think HUD's going to insist on that as a minimum.
And just so that there's no confusion about those, we had something much longer in mind than that. And so the idea is that we don't have to come back later, whether it's after the note is paid off, with residents wondering, geez, are they going to use all that property to build homes? And so this is the public rationale for this, is that this thing become perpetually open space, and a guarantee of that.
Well, I think that the community is here tonight because they've been challenged, warned, threatened, whatever you want to call it, with the golf course turning into residential. So the value to us as a community and using dollars that could in most cases, go to other projects to secure this in perpetuity for green space, so that I'd love to be able to know that we had a golf course in perpetuity, but I know that that's another question and discussion down the line. But right, at least for the value of this community, knowing that in this negotiation we don't end up with a residential community on what we've grown up around being a golf course.
Well, and there are, if I could add one more thing, when you go to HUD, whose mission is to serve, low-income people, and you start talking about private golf courses, that's going to raise some alarms. So, we have to immediately say the public standpoint. This is a public golf course. If it were a private golf course, I would not advise you even attempt this. But it's a public golf course that any member of the public can go to, pay their money, and get in. And the argument has to be made to HUD that there is, and this is from their handbooks, that there is an overwhelming public benefit to this project. The overwhelming public benefit is the 51% job creation, and I would suggest from the job descriptions I've seen, we would be in excess of 51%, which I think would help you a great deal. And the other thing is the involvement of a nonprofit organization that's going to try to get jobs in distressed areas of the city would also be something HUD would be favorable to.
One other thing I want to mention about the operation of the golf course, while we think that there should be some period of time where they can guarantee us a golf course, The idea that it always has to be a golf course, well, courses are a business and they cost money to operate, so it would be an unrealistic expectation to ask any private entity for in perpetuity this has to operate as something at a loss, because many golf courses close because they're very costly and many of them lose money.
Right, just in general for the, for the public's viewpoint, we're not going to be able to guarantee a golf course in perpetuity.
Right. What we'd be able to guarantee is golf course and or open space, that property wouldn't be developed on in perpetuity.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Mr. Shelley?
Thank you, Mayor. I guess a couple of questions. One is, I have some concern with the amount of money that's being requested. In general, when I first heard about this project, just simply because those monies are, for the most part, already been planned for, allocated, and thought about being used for other projects we've already kind of committed to and what we're working for. And so I had some initial concerns when I first heard the fact that we were requesting, because it's not really a grant, it is monies that the city has access to, and so if we're giving them to you guys, then we're foreclosing our ability to use them for other projects we may have in mind. But my question I have, though, before I get into more of a discussion on it, is when do we have to make the decision as far as the amount of money that we are asking for HUD? Do we put in an application? Because my understanding this process today is more so about, do we give you authorization to move forward to determine what the details are of this deal are, versus saying tonight this is the final plan. So my question is, if we give authorization to city staff and to you to go forward and determine what HUD will allow for, when do we have to give you that amount? Can we apply for $3 million and then later on have a discussion and say, well, maybe it's less that we're wanting to, or vice versa, maybe it's more we want to give to this project? When do we make that decision?
I would say that you have some time up front to get that nailed down, but before you do any kind of a formal application or go down the path of amending your consolidated plan or your action plan, you need to have an exact amount of money nailed down.
And one other thing I'd like to mention is they're on a fairly fast time frame, so while I agree with Calvin, we don't need that tonight. We would like some fairly clear direction relatively soon as to not back up their time schedule. I think they have a weather, I think it's a weather related issue as well in terms of their construction.
Okay. And so I guess that's my first question, trying to figure out, because I'm not sure exactly what number I'm comfortable working with. And after meeting, I did meet with Mr. Rosen, to hear a little bit about what his plan was. And so for me, it's more about the detail of the actual course itself. With Mr. Fazio on board, I think is the selling point to me. I mean, that if you're coming in here, and I have some questions about the design, and that is being that if you're coming in and completely redesigning, I know you like the layout as far as where the holes may be located and where you're going progressively from hole 1, 2, and 3. But are you actually going to come in and redesign and make it your signature course with your name on it, such that where we used to have a hill, there may no longer be a hill, or there may be a new hill where there used to be flat land, or are you actually coming in and completely redesigning the course?
We're going to use the same layout that is there right now.
And when you say layout, that's where I'm confused. Does that mean you're going to use essentially where hole 1 is where hole 1's going to be?
Well, it'll be the same hole in the same spot that it is right now.
But getting to that hole and the features along the way, the sand traps, the bunkers, the hills, the mounds, is that going to be changed?
They will be changed, moved, and put in strategic places. And we'll add some dirt to the fairways to give it some contour so we can drain it, and then add the sand to it so we can, play when it's raining.
Okay, because to me, that's one of the selling points. If you're going to make this a request from the city, I think the quality of the project is what makes the request. So if it's going to be a Fazio signature course, there's only so many of those here in South Florida, then we would become a list of places that people would want to come play because of your course, because of your name. And so I assume if you put your name on it, it's going to be at that standard, but I just want confirmation of the fact that it is in fact going to be a top class course, because I have played the course now. It's nice, but it's not, I don't know that it would draw people from all around. So I'm hoping that what you're proposing is in fact, although the layout and where the holes are currently located is going to be, how you get from the tee box to the green is going to be a completely new look.
That'll be a different look, because we'll have some shape in it, we'll have some contours, we'll have bunker placements and brand new greens that'll be elevated and recontoured so that they're puttable. As far what I see out there now, I would not come down here to play it I lived across the street.
Okay. And then part of my question is, as it relates to this process, is more so with the discussion of the monies is what are the detailed terms that's being proposed? Because I'm hearing a plan that is potentially interesting to me, and I think could be something that might make a lot of sense for all of us to partner up and work on. But the actual details themselves are not yet discussed. I mean, I don't know for a fact that Mr. Fazio is on board, that he's under contract, that he's going to be the designer. So when do we get to the actual details, as you say, the protection, saying that how long is it going to be a golf course? If it's going to be open space, who maintains that open space? Because maybe they're not required to keep it open as a golf course, but it has to be, maintained and look nice and not be overgrown and things of that nature like it's gotten in the past. And also my other question is management, because what we found before is people have come into Keysgate, they've tried to redevelop that course and make it nice, and it gets nice for a little while, and then because of management issues, it doesn't get maintained. So the last thing I want to see is that, the city agrees to put monies into something that looks great for a year or 2 years, but because we don't have a top-notch management team to manage this top-notch course, it ends up being back to where it was 5-6 years down the road, and now what do we get for our money? So those are things that I don't have comfort with as we sit here now, but I hope to get that, as I get details. So when do we get those details? When do you start those back and forths?
Because your approval is discretionary, any other items that you want added, we can add. So I would encourage you, whether it's now or at another meeting, to give us some direction on what things are important to you for them to agree to, and then we can work with them on that. Some things will, I'm sure, be fine with them. Other things they may have concerns with, and we can come back to you with what those concerns are. But in general, this meeting and another meeting is a good opportunity for the council to give us direction on some of the policy objectives you'd like to see tied into this grant, including, by the way, the total amount that you want to grant, if any.
Okay, correct. And so I guess while I've got the floor, my direction is obviously the least amount of money that we have to put into the project, the better, because I do know that there are other projects that those monies were being contemplated to be used for. So if they go to this project, then we're going to have to scramble to find monies for other projects. And I think it's important that I think this could be a very good project. I think it could be a world-class attraction. But again, I need more details before I'm 100% comfortable with the whole process. So I guess as far as funding, it'd be as small as, the lower is better than the higher. So to come in and ask for 3.5 when originally it seemed like it was 3, and I was already somewhat, shaky at 3, just something to keep in mind as this thing moves forward. I think I'll save any additional comments till after I hear from my colleagues.
Mr. Burgess?
Thank you. Calvin, if they ask for 3.5, how many more jobs must they create, and at what level salary must they be at? And then a follow-up to that, does your business model or your business plan allow for these extra jobs to be created and to be paid for out of what you've come up with so far as your operating budget, I guess?
That would be 100 jobs.
So they'd have to come up with 15 additional jobs out there.
Right.
Okay. So does your operating budget, I guess, that you guys have put together so far allow you to add in another 15 jobs at the salary base that must be paid to these people?
That's a very good question, and we want to be accurate with what we're saying because we want to be accurate and be able to follow up. We know the letter that said 3 million was a direct result of 85 in the 35,000 as suggested by the CDBG handbook. We recently got some advice, and I think if I were to do a better job articulating our request to staff and to council, would be to let you and your staff analyze it with us, that there may be a bonus opportunity that HUD has available that we've been told. So I didn't do a good job stating that our original need is 3.5. That's not changed. And our permanent jobs plus construction jobs plus part-time jobs, which are not counted in our 85 jobs, we've been told may make an eligibility under the HUD.
I think the confusion of the problem, though, is the staff gave you the formula and they gave you the recommendation. You put it in your letter, you submitted it as a public meeting, and then at the podium in front of everybody, you ask for $500,000 more. That's the confusion. So, I mean, we're trying to work with you here, but that's
Right.
really not a good process, in my opinion.
Right, and I apologize on behalf of our team for the timing. We'd like to analyze it, maybe to rephrase it, if I could pull it back. We'd love to analyze that opportunity with staff.
I mean, this is a process that's going to be very cumbersome and complicated, and staff is taking the most cautious approach possible so that HUD approves whatever the council ultimately approves. We end up starting to push the envelope because people see, well, I think I know what happened, is that somebody looked at what our total allotment was, which, and that made it easy to just lop on another $500,000. I just think the reason we don't pay back any money to HUD and we don't make mistakes like other cities is because we're very cautious about how we approach these things, because federal regulations are very complicated. And not only does the local office sometimes give you direction and make you pay back things, but then as Washington gets it, they look at it and say that the local office was wrong, and or some inspector general above them then goes ahead and questions the agency itself. And so we really like to be very cautious about the way we do things, and an added $500,000 request at a public meeting after your request is in is just not really how we anticipate going forward with this process.
Thank you. James, I guess, since you're our land use guru, give me your definition of open space, what it would remain if the golf course was to close. Who's responsible for maintenance, blah, 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 blah.
That would be a negotiating term. We'd have to figure out whether they're amenable to some sort of a fund or something that would protect the city so that the property would be maintained, and or they may not agree to that, so it's going to be a give and take in that regard. It's really a function of money and whether somebody is willing to reserve some money to ensure that.
Right, and the definition of open space would be defined in the agreement. We don't need to stick it to any kind of, it's going to be what the parties agreed to as open space. And so if you agree to trees and grass, that's what it'll be with. And
I think more importantly to me would be if it was to ever close down, who's responsible for it? Because obviously the homeowners over there that have the most vested interest in this, having this in their backyards, would want to make sure that they're going to be protected in some sort down the road, that if things don't go according to business models or whatever, and there's a problem down the road,
yeah, and
at
some point it's going to be a matter of figuring out, assuming this went to, there's also an issue of when it's a golf course and the level of golf course, which is, I've actually played the golf course as well, and it's a golf course, but it's not a golf course, it's not. And then the second thing is that ultimately it's going to come down to, for you feeling secure that the open space is going to be maintained, and ultimately that's going to come down to how much it costs every year to maintain the space, and for us together with Mr. Rosen, figuring out a way to guarantee that that's taken care of through some sort of a trust.
And one other thing that's important to recognize is we do have to be realistic that forever is a long time. And so we have to kind of figure out who's gonna pay for it 1,000 years from now. I don't know.
And so, okay, to the applicants here tonight, Tyler, Mr. Rosen, and the others, how do I take this to my residents and sell on Mr. Shelley's side of town? What benefit do they get? Are they going to be able to come out there and play golf at a discounted rate? How do I sell it to those people? Keysgate, obviously, their residents, the local surrounding community, the homeowners that are there are going to benefit the most and all that. But to Mr. Maldonado's people in Waterstone, to Oasis, to Mr. Williams's people, if he was here from the Southwest, obviously they're going to possibly benefit through jobs, some of our community, but in the actual use, as far as discounted rates, or what are we going to do for Homestead residents when they come out there to welcome them and
it's completely public. If someone wants to stop it,
We've agonized over the projected, cost per round, and we think that it's our business plan at $45 a round is a very competitive rate. That's going to be a discounted rate in the marketplace, but open to all, not just Homestead residents. So anyone that drives by as a public course, they can play, they can pay and play, they can come in the restaurant and have lunch downstairs, or they can have their wedding at the facility. So we're being inside the city doesn't provide a specific discount or benefit other than it's an available asset, you know, that's open to the public, open to the community. Certainly local knowledge will be taken advantage of in the form of reservations and events in the clubhouse. But also I think it's important for us to know that the radius of rounds, I mean, our understanding of our history, there's a portion of rounds that come from tourism, which is very valuable to any vendor or business owner in the city, within the city, because you get the follow-on effect of folks in town spend their money in town while they're in town. And we see that as actually very important. It's just hard to document. We've not actually done a zip code analysis of where former players come from, but we believe it's a local catchment primarily, and then we hope to gain tourists as well. We have a lot of capacity for rounds that can serve both the local community and the visitors. And we also know that our clubhouse can be a fantastic event center, and that mainly will be taken advantage of by local stakeholders.
And Councilman, one other thing I'd like to add is just so that there's not a unrealistic expectation here in terms of the cost of rounds, unless you put something in the agreement that would regulate rates, which I'm not sure I would recommend, but they're going to operate this like a business.
Correct.
And so if you want them to stay in business, they're going to need to make money.
Understood.
And so, but on the other hand, if they raise the rates to the point where people can't pay for it, you have to understand, unless you put restrictions in there, they'll be able to do that.
Understood. You mentioned that you'll be opening and operating at a deficit when you open. How many years, suppose things take a little longer to get going than anticipated when your business model has been set and you're opening up and all that, what do you foresee as a doable time before you have golf course remorse, for lack of a better term or something, and then the city is still paying off the loan, and we're wondering where Wayne Rosen and Tyler snuck back up I-95 to Jacksonville too on us?
I think that's part of the negotiations.
I think that is part of the negotiations with staff. We're very interested in your thoughts. I also know that we have so much invested. I mean, we'll have over $7.5 million invested and providing a deficit to protect our investment. So depending on how you look at it, and our team has a large landholding investment in the area remaining, which is not to be forgotten, that makes us even more importantly vested as a community stakeholder. So it's kind of hard to say because who knows what's going to happen, but we're so optimistic right now, and we want to guard our investment, that we'll be here for many years to come. It'd be hard to kind of document or commit that kind of analysis, but we were very interested in working with staff. Your expert CDBG grant consultant, Mr. Knowles, knows a lot about the rules as well on what we have to do to convince federal HUD. They've done hundreds of projects around the nation, many of which have succeeded. We all can point to ones that have failed. The ones that have failed that I looked at seem to be ones that are undercapitalized. One important statement I'd like to make is that we're well capitalized, and you all know that. That's important. That means we're large enough that we're not thinly investing and then we can't afford to sustain, and that's good news. We also have 57% of the jobs technically identified are eligible for that 51% threshold. It's way off topic to your question, but someone asked the question, would we meet the 51%? CareerSource has analyzed our jobs. We've included job descriptions to the city, and 57% are eligible. So that's well in excess of the 51%. So that means that the other 30 or 43% are higher wages and likely to be higher wages or likely to have employees that do not meet the eligibility of the 51%, but they're still Homestead residents. And our exciting, and this really does get exciting, we're going to train people that are in the 51%, and they're going to move up. And so this really is exciting. It's a labor-intensive operation and a high-training operation as well.
Let me say, I support this as somebody from Keysgate. I've not had one negative email about it. I support it. I caution you guys in asking for the top of the food chain on money, because we do need money to do other things. And so I'll leave it at that for now. If there's anything else that comes up. Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The Section 108 plan is not unusual. It was unusual to me before we came here tonight, but in doing my research, I learned that there was a local establishment that was made possible by Section 108, and that was Jungle Island. Do we have the numbers on what their loan was for?
I do not, but yeah, Parrot Jungle was a 108.
Was the 108?
Yes, ma'am.
And just to follow up on that, I heard a reference to the 5-year consolidated action plan being previously approved, and there are projects in the pipeline. And if we move forward with Section 108, then there are some potential projects that can be unfunded. But the perspective I want you to look at this from is, if you look at the projects that we have funded previously, and I ask you that for a reason, if you look at those projects and you look at this potential project, there is no comparison. There is absolutely no comparison as it relates to the benefits that we will bring to the city of Homestead. And I did a search of America's greatest golf courses. And in looking at those numbers for 2015, 2016, I saw the Fazio name on several of them. I can go on a list of golf courses that this name brand has been associated with. So I'm really excited about this, and I think the community is as well. And the direction from me would be for staff to continue those conversations as it relates to bringing this golf course to the city of Homestead, ensuring that we protect the public's interest while creating a win-win scenario for the Keysgate community in particular and the city of Homestead in general. So I'm excited about where this can potentially go.
Mr. Rowe? Mr. Rowe?
Thank you. Thank you. I too am excited about this project, and I do want to ask just a couple of questions. Is there any future protections for the residents out there in Keysgate for any additional assessments if this thing doesn't work? Is there anything we can do for that?
If it's the will of the council, we can put anything in the agreement that we want. Again, it's going to be a function of what they can agree to, and we're happy to negotiate anything that you want.
Because the residents out there have been on pins and needles for about a year now, and I'm glad to see that Wayne has come forward with this plan, which I think is a very good plan for the area, but I do want to see that they get protected as well. Also, do you have a performer already set up for these businesses that will be out there so that we know what you expect in revenues the first 4 to 5 years? How many rounds of golf, how many chicken sandwiches you might sell in the restaurants, things like that, to give us an idea that at least you have planned for the lack of income during the first couple of years. Do you have just an estimated number of your income for the first year?
We know that we believe we'll be north about 20,000 rounds, but I don't have the top line revenue number in my head. We can certainly have discussions. Some of our projections are event planning based, but we have a team on board that have developed 5-year pro formas. And again, I think I said it before, but the same team that owned Tobacco Road, the Oyster River Bar, and the Oak Tavern, and other successful restaurants around Miami-Dade County, they're the team, as well as the Fazio group, who manage a number of golf courses, so and event facilities related, and those are connected. The Clubhouse Recreational Event Center is part and parcel to the deal, and that's really important. Mr. Knowles made it very clear that all of the funds we're using with Fazio Design are private. We've not procured anything that'll be reimbursed by HUD dollars. There's a procurement process that we'll follow that are in the rule book. So just so you know, we have the nation's best designer. We interviewed multiple firms. He's the best because he has hands-on experience. The family has management experience, ownership experience, obviously professional golf experience. But they also know how to operate a real course in a real community, not just Pebble Beach or Torrey Pines or wherever. So this is why they're on our team, and they're here for the long term.
I appreciate that as well. Thank you.
Salter? Mr. Maldonado?
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, just the idea, let's just back up. When this first came before us, when Mr. Rosen acquired the property, I think the main concern that first came to my ears was the idea that the property was going to be turned into homes once it closed. And I've never heard, I've continued to hear that cry over some time. That was my first concern. I know that the community, when it was built and it was designed, and those who purchased it with a purpose. And to see that go away was very disheartening. I've seen that happen in other communities throughout Florida, and those communities were affected in a negative way when that happened. Unfortunately, values of the homes change, the density of the area changes, and it greatly affects those residents that initially purchased there, and then forcing our residents that committed here then to turn to somewhere else because this amenity is no longer here. Once I heard that there was discussion in regards to, to bringing a golf course back, that was a turn for the better. Let me, I'm sure you guys know by now I'm a golfer now. So January 2014, I began playing golf. And let me tell you, I got bit pretty hard by the bug. And I've played golf pretty much every weekend since January 2014. If I had $1 for every time someone asked me about the Keys Gate golf course because they know I'm from Homestead, or they spoke well about, I like the design, I really like the place, if I had $1 for every time they asked me that, I think we could just invest it right back in it and get it up and running. Keys Gate Golf Course, when it was up and running in its time, was very well recognized throughout the community. I've gone all the way up, and when I say I play a lot, and unfortunately, I'm not playing in Homestead, so my dollars are not staying here, by the way. They're going up to Broward County. I'm driving all the way from Palmetto all the way to Broward County to play at golf courses. And so this golf course for this community, I think it's a great amenity. I think it's very important for this community. I, for one, would love the fact that I'm going to be putting my dollars here instead of everywhere else. I've played rounds with individuals where they're spending a couple $100 per game per day. And so I know that the golfing community, when they get involved or they start playing at a good golf course, they do drop some good money. They tend to be affluent, or if not, well enough to enjoy the game. So the impact of the golfing industry in regards to this area and this golf course, I think could be significant. So I think that's definitely a plus. Attracting the golfing community is important, as well as the thought of residents. Again, the families that follow and move around golf courses is incredible. I found out that folks, I just spoke to a gentleman the other day that he purchased a house in Naples because there was a golf course that had an affluent name, and he made an investment and a good purchase, and he's traveling over there, and he lives here in the Palmetto Bay area. And so now hearing the fact that we have such a great designer that's joining this course is such a plus right now, because that the name and the designer on these golf courses, from what I've learned and since January 2014, is that the designer is everything in regards to a golf course. And so when we see those top, and I can tell you the golfing industry, yes, they've taken hits by poor management, but when you have a good name behind a golf course and a good management team behind a golf course, those golf courses do well. I mean, I played at golf courses, and just maybe 2 weeks ago I played that on the winter time, they're charging $200, and these are all in Broward County and up north. And so I think that, the potential of having such a great golf course is a plus here. So, from not only from a golfing perspective, because I like to invest in my own community and see this here, but just having heard the amount of people that would like to see this golf course back, is definitely a plus. And I'm not talking about the Homestead residents, because I'm not talking about the Homestead residents that ask about it. I'm talking about from Homestead forward, the golfing community is asking for another place to play somewhere in Miami-Dade County, because anywhere in the south, and we're talking from Kendall south, folks are either playing at Palmetto Bay, which is a public golf course, or they're playing in Miccosukee or up north, and they're crying for something down here. So, and something of quality. And I see the prices that they pay to play at some of these golf courses that are not quality, and it's kind of like, it's a little bit crazy. But the fact that if we're paying anywhere around $45 for a quality golf course with this name on it, that's going to be a large attraction, I think, for this area. So I think that's a plus. So I'm looking forward to sitting down with management and making sure at the end of the day that we look at the whole picture and our concerns. So I'm for moving forward and discussing, what this potentially can do. I think it would be a great addition to this community. So I'm looking forward to have that discussion. And, obviously with this management and staff, this city has obviously trusted us in making sure that whatever we do, we're doing the right decision. With this staff, with this management, we know that they're not going to let anything get by that's going to put the city on hold or it's going to be costing us. So, thank you for the community for coming out and working with us. We know, you guys know that we are going to stand behind you. We're going to make sure what's good for the community, and I could guarantee that this staff and management is going to make sure that that we're not left holding the bag. And so with that, I yield my, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Burgess?
Thank you again, Mayor. To the manager and the staff, do they have to submit their business model and expenditure plan to us for the grant money to be used, or how do we do that to make sure the accountability and what it's being used for? Does HUD ask for that stuff?
Yes, HUD will want to see some kind of pro forma statement on the operations.
So they could, would HUD say our monies can only be used for certain things? Would they go to be that specific?
That's an excellent point. I would recommend that we carve out a specific thing that the money is for, because these ultimately are federal dollars. So when one federal dollar touches your project, your whole project just became federal. So we want to make certain, for example, that we restrict the use of the funds to, say, just the golf course and not the golf course and the clubhouse, or the golf course and some external amenity, because this money will become subject to all federal conditions, just like if you were doing a city project for a sewer line with federal money. It's the same laws, same contract conditions.
So I guess you'll take that into consideration when you guys sit down at the next step?
Yes, and like I said, assuming you all want to go forward, and all we're asking for tonight is informal direction to move on to the next step. We're going to make sure that this thing is done by the book, and we're going to need to make sure that they understand all the rules and they're willing to agree to them.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
Vice Mayor?
Yes, just for clarification purposes, to ensure that I read this correctly. This is going to be a golf course and recreational complex that I read, but in the agenda item it said that the CDBG funds, the Section 108, would be for the renovation of the golf course and not the other portion. So I believe to a certain extent it has been carved out to allow for specificity as far as how the Section 108 funds will be used. So this is for the renovation portion of your entire project, correct?
That is my understanding as well, and that's something that we need to go to pains to make clear to HUD, that it's part of an overall project, but the city money is only for the renovation of the golf course.
And we just want to clarify that we're happy to allocate the cost of the eligible items. This is kind of the way I read the rule book. As your experts advise us, because we've matched 2-to-1, like there's so much private money being spent, we can allocate to your heart's desire the elements that CDBG HUD overseers would be most thrilled about, and procure their Davis-Bacon wage issues on how it's procured, how the construction is spent. We're excited to follow all the rules, and we just want to give you that discretion to work with us, because again, there's so much there to be done. We'll fit in the what's it called, the square peg in the square hole, so that it fits. And yes, Vice Mayor, we wanted to have it on the record. That says we presented in our paper, but also said, comma, whatever you tell us for eligibility under the program.
Well, I have to agree with the Vice Mayor. I was here when under the understanding that it was being paid to renovate the course, and for that, for those funds, we were going to get a reasonable time frame for golf and some sort of a overlay that keeps it green space and some. We're not going to be owning any portion of the clubhouse, any of that. This is just strictly predicated on what happens on that green space and what happens to that golf course.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Shelley?
Mayor. I guess I support moving forward. I support staff moving forward and getting more details and figuring out how can we make this a win-win scenario. And I think that, again, the details are key to me in understanding to make sure that we get a good product, that we get a good return on our investment, and that it's a long-term return on our investment. So it ties into when we talk about even the cost of the greens fees. I think $45 is probably, a good low discounted average rate. However, I also don't want them to make their case where they can't support, because the end goal is to have a high-end product for as long as we possibly can in our city. And so you also don't want to handicap them to the extent that they end up charging such a low amount that they're almost guaranteed to fail within a certain period of time, and at some point in time we don't have what we asked for. So, I do think it's good to have maybe a local carve-out, potentially look in to see maybe locals get pay a different rate than the non-locals. They do it in Key West all the time. You go to Key West, if you're a conch, you get discounts at all the bars and restaurants. If you're a tourist, you pay full price. So maybe it's something we can look into as a business model. But again, I want to make sure that if we go this route, we do so with the idea that long term we want success, not just short term. We don't want this to be a 5-year success story. This needs to be something that if we're putting our money into is going to be successful, tomorrow out of the gate, but also 10 years, 15, 20 years from now, because that's ultimately what's going to help the home values of our residents, is that when they go to sell their home years from now, you still want that golf course to be at the same level or higher than it was when this whole process started. So something to keep in mind as these negotiations, as these details are being worked out.
Well, let me say, Wayne, you and your team, thanks for putting this together. I think that the quality of life issue that this will bring to our community is going to far outweigh any of the initial costs that we put in. And the fact that the job creation component that we're looking for, we're all desperately trying to create jobs in this community. This is another component that will help us do that. And I think that this is a far-reaching outside the community of Keysgate, because obviously at the end of the day, selfishly for the city, as property values increase, so do taxes. So at the end of the day, that property value is going to come back to the city to be reinvested in other ways to help both sides, all sides of the community. So, I certainly support what you're doing. From a selfish standpoint, if we're paying for 100% of the renovation at $3.9 million, it's maybe a little unfair to the taxpayer, but let's work those details out with the management staff and the whole process that comes through with CDGB. But, I'm fully in support. I know the community is here fully in support of this project. So is there anyone who's not in favor of moving forward from the council? It's unanimous. We're moving forward. So the devil's going to be in the details as you guys work out the process.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
So everybody leaves happy tonight. Okay.
And
unless
Mayor,
you want to stay around, we're going to go back to some utility issues on tab 8 and 9. I know you can't wait for us to buy fuel injectors for the peel sticks. Sir? Mr. Manager? Did you?
No, I was saying Barbara's here now, and whenever you're ready.
Let's,
I think we only have 2 items.
Yeah, we're going to go back to,
While nobody can hear me, I'd like to request executive sessions on 2 cases.
Ladies and gentlemen, hey. Ladies and gentlemen. Hello. just give a second.
John.
Hey, I got 4 years. It don't matter. Folks, can you all move out to the hallway so we can finish?
John,
Hey, Wayne, you're not done yet. Take your crowd outside. I can't hit it hard enough. It'll break in half. All right, Mr. Manager, tab 8.
Is a Fairbanks Morris item.
Okay, this one here I read, Barbara, there was a question. So the question was about the marketability. How do we know?
Correct.
Yeah.
My question, Barbara, was, the company is a sole source provider. So when they give us a price of whatever their total value is on their reconditioning, how do we know that that is an actual factual price? Do we ask somebody, or do we just kind of go, okay, yes, or do we have an in-house expert that goes through and writes up an analysis of what things cost and stuff like that? Or I'm not a big sole source guy, as you may remember from the last meeting, so why Dennis fixes the house here.
Councilman Burgess, we do have in-house experts who understand the cost of doing this work. Our current power plant supervisor has worked in this type of industry with engines for 25 years. Also, our assistant director has worked longer than that.
Come on, don't be aging Ken like that.
Well, he started very young. But we do have in-house expertise who understand the cost of what we're purchasing here and who feel that we have purchased lower cost items before, aftermarket products, and what we wound up doing in a number of cases is having to go back and rework because the parts were not quality. And so ultimately, we wound up spending more money than if we would have gotten a quality part to start with. And as Fairbanks Morris is the original equipment manufacturer for the engines we're talking about here, 20 and 21, which are two of our Power Horse engines, they are the best source to go to for these parts.
I guess my
And
other... go ahead, I'm sorry. Nope, go ahead. I didn't mean to...
We did not, to answer another part of your question, no, we don't do an in-house analysis at this point in time.
You said we don't do one?
We do not do an in-house analysis. We do have expertise who understand the cost.
Okay. I guess, I don't know, maybe for myself, just if we could maybe get some sort of write-up or something that explains fair market value to me.
What we can do is pull this item, we'll have it on.
No, I'm fine moving it forward. I just say in the future. I'm not a big sole source provider person. So I would like to have some kind of comparison in the future if as they bring more more projects to us. Just so I know, and so that the council knows, and so that the public knows, we're getting the best bang for our buck from these people that we've given the contract to. Because as I've seen in my line of work, when you give the work to one person over and over and over again, they've become very comfortable in receiving your checks. And I just want to make sure the checks that we're giving them are honestly earned and honestly paid for the product that we're receiving.
Certainly. We can do that for any future purchases with
And it's
Fairbanks.
nothing against this company. I don't know this company from any, and it's not a knock on Ken and your other help there. It just makes me feel more comfortable. And I do the same thing when I go out for a refit on the boat or something. One guy may do the work, but I bring somebody else in and make sure I'm getting the best bang for my buck where we're at. So that's all I'm asking.
We will definitely do that on future purchases. And I will reiterate, we have had instances in the past, and we could include that as well, where we wound up spending quite a bit more.
No, I understand, because when I buy
rework.
refurbished parts on the engines, they're not always the best of quality. So I understand that you try to go to the highest quality, but I want to make sure that high quality guy is earning the money that he's asking us to give him. I'm not questioning the product. I'm not questioning the company. I just want to make sure that we keep some sense of honesty in the process for myself.
And if I may add, Mr. Burgess, it maybe is how you're putting it. A sole source meaning is that's the only person that's allowed to work on that engine, or you can only buy those parts from that particular vendor because they have a patent or a monopoly or whatever. So it could be that maybe the terminology we're using here as a sole source provider, if those parts are available from someplace else and they fit and they're the same fit, form, and function, maybe it's not a sole source. Maybe it's maybe you have a preferred. I don't know.
No, that doesn't bother me. It bothers me that, I guess what bothers me is that we've got this one company, and it's like I said, after time, they grow comfortable in giving us a bill, and I want to see justification for the bill. I want to see that it's a competitive bid or a competitive bill that we're receiving. That's all I'm asking.
And I think it's fair also, since we do have in-house expertise, if somebody knows the market and understands that be in writing so that you can see and evaluate whether their rationale is satisfactory.
Okay. And then my next, because Councilman Shelley is getting gray sitting next to me as we sit here and wait to get our plan for the power plant. I mean, he's been demoted since we started trying to get this plan presented. So I would ask that we have the plan soon, not on a 41-item agenda, but perhaps maybe even as a workshop. I'm not sure how long Ms. Quinones needs to present it, but if it's going to be a 40-item agenda coming up over the next couple of months or whatever, perhaps we need to start a workshop earlier, because, Richard, I don't think we don't need to have a quorum for a workshop, do we?
As long as there's no votes taken, it's
Correct.
just an open meeting.
Right. So those people that are parties that are interested would be able to come earlier perhaps and participate, and then we could roll into, instead of having, I don't know, what, a 45-minute, hour-long discussion, whatever it is.
If you all want to consider whether you want to do this before the holidays or after, just because we do have difficulties sometimes.
He's been the advocate asking for it. His child is almost coming up on his second birthday, I think, since he started asking for this thing. So whatever makes Mr. Shelley happiest.
We're going to talk about that, or you want to vote on this?
Yeah, it catches me while I'm trying to catch my snack here. Yeah, I'm okay waiting till the first of the year, only because I know we have a lot of things going on right now. And then you get to the holidays, part of that discussion is only for us, but also for the community. And the community kind of stops paying attention after, say, next meeting. So I think it's better to do this come January versus, say, November, December.
Do you think a workshop forum is better, rather than having the confusion of a bunch of items?
Yeah, no, I think that it's ideal, because this is a big item. There's a lot of major information, very complicated information that's going to be coming our way, and big decisions that could result from that information. And so I think we should have a workshop solely dedicated only to this item, and so that we can fully digest it, ask all the questions we can, and not have to worry about also dealing with other items at the same time. Although I do think it should be it should be a standalone day. It shouldn't be part before or after another meeting. It should be a standalone day.
We'll have Barbara work with your office to coordinate some dates.
And that way we'll get the interest of the community here for that particular item, as opposed to 8 or 10 other items that they'd have to sit around and wait for us to get through that discussion. On tab 8, is there any other discussion or questions from council? Is there a motion to move tab 8? Is there a second? All in favor? Tab 9?
Is the transmission consulting services agreement.
We didn't have Barbara, so we brought it back. Tab 9.
The City of Homestead Electric Utility Department is required by the federal government to be registered as a planning authority coordinator and as a transmission planner with the North American Reliability Corporation. Compliance with all the NERC PA-TP reliability standards requires an assessment of the Homestead electrical transmission systems present and future capability to ensure reliable and safe operations of the U.S. transmission grid. Transmission Consultant Services Agreement provides the detailed analytic studies needed to properly perform the assessment and to plan infrastructure for future years. It will also be used to show evidence of compliance with the NERC reliability standards. This will be an ongoing agreement with FP&L for $24,000. Staff recommends Mayor and Council approve the attached resolution authorizing the City Manager to enter into an agreement with FP&L for transmission consulting services.
FP&L, we're required by the federal government to enter into an agreement with FP&L?
No, sir. Mr. Mayor, we are required by the federal government to comply with reliability standards. And the best cost option for us to do that is to partner with FPL and basically have them do the heavy lifting for us.
Okay. Any questions from council? Is there a motion? Is there a second? Any final comments? All in favor? Motion carries. Is there any questions, any discussion from council?
I just have
Mr. Attorney?
2 executive sessions. One involves an employee that was fired and unfortunately filed suit against us. It's Lionel Alfaro versus City of Homestead. Lionel Alfaro versus City of Homestead. And then, unfortunately, there was an accident in one of our playgrounds, and there's a case by, it's called Sanchez versus City of Homestead, which involves a small girl that got hurt on one of our playgrounds. Okay. And then the last thing, just to put on your agenda, unfortunately, Joe Sirota is, we have to go to trial in one of the Lillet cases, the ones that we couldn't get dismissed. That's on December 7th. You certainly are all invited, maybe to opening argument or closing argument downtown in the courthouse, and we expect that trial to last 4 days. Take me on your boat.
Was that a joke or what? I mean,
what?
Was that supposed to be a joke? Did we all want to go downtown and do opening?
The truth is that in a lot of our some of our cases, the council people, just to sort of see what's going on, they do like to sit and,
So it wasn't a joke?
What?
It wasn't a joke?
No, it was an invitation.
Okay.
Mr.
Mr.
Richard,
Burgess.
now that we've been reelected, myself and several others,
Right.
There's a ethics, and it's on December the 4th.
Right.
Do we have to, what's the time, do you know the timeline when we have to have that done by?
You have to have it done within 60 days, I think, but I'll check it for you.
Because they don't have another one scheduled. I asked today,
I'll
and that's
check
the
for
only
you.
day.
I'm going to have,
Okay.
yeah, I'll have to check. What do you think? Right.
So
I
maybe.
have to check the timeline for you.
Yeah, okay.
But I've asked Robert Myers to keep track of it.
Yeah, because that's the only one they're offering, and I can't make it that day.
You can't do
I
it
had
either?
the clerk check with them today.
All right.
And they said, unfortunately, there's
That's
nothing
the
else.
Ethics Commission.
Yeah.
There are
Our friends.
friends.
Thank you.
So, okay, I'll take care of that.
Richard, your group just did an ethics training, 3 months ago?
Yeah,
Was
there's
that
certain ones that we're allowed to do to make it easy for you, and certain ones that they insist on doing themselves.
Okay. That's exciting. Any other comments from council? Is there a motion to adjourn? Is there a second? All in favor? Motion carries. Good night, everyone.